pushes the conventional boundaries of classical music with his 21st century allure. He burst onto the global stage as the youngest winner of the New York Philharmonic's Young Artist Competition at the age of 10 and even appeared in the Android commercial, which aired in the entire United States. Let's meet pianist Ji to learn about his career and some of the challenges he faced as an artist. Today we're joined by classical pianist Ji, who thrills his audiences with his interpretation of masterpieces and never seems to stop challenging himself. Thank you for joining us on Heart to Heart today. It's a pleasure to have you joining us. Would you like to say hello to our viewers first?
Hi, my name is Ji. I'm a musician, and I am very thrilled to be here today to talk to Jennifer about me and music and how exciting it is for me to connect with everybody through that medium. Yes. So thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming once again. I am thrilled to hear all about you and your music, what you do, and I'm sure that our viewers are as well. Now, last year you signed to one of the biggest and most prestigious record labels, Warner Classics, and your label debut was released this past January. So how did you feel when you received the offer from this label?
So this followed this national Android campaign that I was part of in America. Mm-hmm. And during the Grammys of 2016, and it was aired literally, it was the first commercial after they went to commercial break. Uh-huh. So a lot of people saw it, and there was a lot of feedback and buzz from it, and I got a lot of interesting offers. Uh-huh. One of the offers that stood out to me was the Warner Classics offer. Mm-hmm. And that's the only thing I said yes to. When I got the offer, I was very excited, obviously. Mm-hmm. The whole process of signing that contract and deciding what direction I wanted to take, mm-hmm. Especially with the first record. The first program I suggested to them, it was a little bit too difficult.
Which was?
It was basically, the pieces weren't all that difficult, mm-hmm. aside from like two, I think. But the whole concept behind it is they were not used to something that most people are not used to. Uh-huh. And a lot of the times when I present this program to presenters, mm-hmm. Like 99.9% of the times, the reaction is very, huh? Oh. Like, what are you talking about? Uh-huh. And so I've had to really actually gamble a lot. And to get back to what the program is about, mm-hmm. it's about kind of rethinking or rewiring the way we listen to music. Okay. Especially classical music. Uh-huh. There's many different components to classical music. One of them is a very scholarly and a historically correct and theoretically correct, I guess.
And this is from like a musician's point of view,
exactly.
Right?
I mean, there's a sort of a status quo, uh-huh. per se. Of course, I've grown up with this status quo, so mm-hmm. I'm very much aware of it. But I've also grown up in the concert circuit, where I'm become very aware of the lack of young people in the audience, mm-hmm. or the lack of people really understanding or getting the music on a personal level. Mm-hmm. And so I felt the responsibility to kind of pay attention to that. And the result was that this was a program where I've, designed an hour-long program, mm-hmm. with no applause in between the pieces. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't really make sense on paper. Okay. Why this piece comes after this piece, uh-huh. and this comes, and why there is no applause in between them. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that being is that I thought about, why is it lacking that sort of interest or that sort of raw, pure emotional connection. Mm-hmm. And that's because we've sort of somehow made it so far removed from a personal content, mm-hmm. and rather than it's been very focused on the tradition and the academia behind it. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I find a lot of people lost interest. I'm not saying that the audience is stupid. Mm. I'm saying that they could care less.
Would you say that it's more, I guess, approachable to people that may not know much about classical music even? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I could tell you a couple testaments that I've had from different concerts that I've played at. I mean, I'll just read you a little letter that I got today, actually, written to my former manager. I had the pleasure of introducing him and was taken by his personal warmth as we wished him a very happy birthday, followed by a superb concert which was most unusual for its silences, one of which I'm told was 4 minutes and 33 seconds long, which it's a piece by John Cage. During every silence, whether the long one or those between pieces, only one cough was heard from the audience, otherwise you could literally hear a pin drop. I'm assuming that everyone was reacting as I did, filling the silences with thoughts of the marvel we just had heard.
Oh, wow.
After the concert, a number of members of the audience approached the director sitting next to me and me to express their delight with the concert and the warmth and passion of Ji's playing. I have never written to an artist or agent before, but felt compelled to do so now. I'm so touched when I get stuff like this.
Yes.
And this is why I do it. And no matter how many times I have to battle it out, it's worth it at the end of the day.
And this is exactly what you're aiming for.
Yes.
This is exactly what you're trying for every single time.
Yeah.
There was something about how you could hear, you know, even a pin drop. And we do hear people coughing in between.
Yeah.
Does that really disturb the
No,
artist,
I mean,
though?
I
Not
think,
at all, but...
I think it's a natural thing for
That's
people
true.
to do. And I've been doing this long enough where I've learned to tune it out. There was a story that my parents told me a long time ago, and they still do, of how Tiger Woods, his father would take him to the cemetery very late at night, and he would make all these noises, and he would throw things, but he had to, you know, hole in one every single time.
You mentioned something about Tiger Woods' parents. How have your parents helped you train? Have they helped you train?
Oh yeah,
In which
I
ways
mean,
have they helped you?
my parents, my mom was a singer. She's more of a teacher than anything else, in my opinion. She's an unbelievable mentor. My dad was actually an ethics professor in Korea.
Oh, I see.
Their influences on me are just immense. I mean, I think about things a lot of times as I'm getting older, the way my dad does, I think. But then I have the ability to listen to music from my mom, I think. She's probably one of the most instinctual, musical person I know. I still play for her to this day.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I still like, I still get really nervous when I play for her to this day, yeah.
Is there a reason why you feel
Because
nervous?
she'll never be like, oh, that was good.
Really?
Never, ever.
Oh, wow.
No.
Okay. Then I'd like to ask how music has influenced you. I mean, you're young and you started at quite a young age. How would you say classical music or just music in general has influenced you or your life?
I don't understand when there are some people that I've met that say, I don't like music. Like,
Music.
Music. Yeah. I don't care for music. Music is a nuisance.
Oh, wow.
Music, there's no need for music. And then I say, you know that like little like pin drop over there? That's music. That's noise is music. And they're like, no, but music for me, it has opened so many doors and secret vaults, whatever you want to call it, to understanding life on a much deeper level, understanding the human compassion and the emotion on a very real and tangible level. And there's a lot of things to be said about a musician, and there's some of the misconceptions are probably not misconceptions. It's probably true that we're all sort of in our own brain sometimes, but it's because not every single day people are willing to tap into. And sometimes it's a very intense experience. But because of that intense experience, I'm able to experience the opposite end of that spectrum and how amazing that is. And so I think I've garnered a lot of the fine balanced things in life, I guess. Yeah.
Well, interesting story. I could sit with you for a whole day and talk about so many things, I think. Now, Glenn Gould is one of the best known and celebrated classical pianists of the 20th century. And I'd like to talk about your interpretation, how it's different from the late pianists. So it was also renowned as an interpreter of the keyboard works of Bach, including the Goldberg Variations. Right. So how would you describe your variation? How is it different?
Than Glenn's?
Yes.
He put the Goldberg Variations on the map for, up until now, for generations.
Yeah.
And he's the one that made it modern. He's the one that kind of put it on the pedestal that it is today, that it is on today. And that's sort of the reverence that I grew up with in regards to this piece. I think the most fond memory I actually played in Toronto when I was turning 17. On most memorable and the most rewarding moments, he knocked on my door. I opened it up. I didn't know who it was. And he said, "I'm Glenn Gould's former manager. Your playing reminded me of Glenn's." I love and respect so much his nerdiness over this music. If I were to make my final recording one day, I think I'd revisit the Goldberg Variations. And going back to your question about how is mine different from Glenn Gould's, it's drastically different because we're two different people. But it's drastically different, but it's also kind of very similar in the sense that I wanted to kind of his command at the keyboard and his understanding of the keyboard is so in sync with mine. I think when I see him play, I see him treat the instrument as an extension of himself much more than I see any of other pianists doing. And recently I regained that, or I rediscovered that sort of connection with the instrument itself.
Was there a certain incident or a happening that helped you regain that?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I came around this way from whatever, turmoil period I've had. And, my parents have always told me that this is what you were meant to do. And a lot of other people around me told me that too, but I never really believed it. I recently told somebody that I was going to quit.
Recently?
And I realized that I can't quit because it's a responsibility, I think.
You have gone through so much. I mean, you're nicknamed the pianist for the 21st century. You've been amazing the world with your unpredictable career path. Let's begin by talking about when you began playing the piano, age 5, correct? Okay, and at the age of 10, you were the youngest pianist to win the New York Philharmonic's Young Artists Competition. So it's hard to imagine a 10-year-old, so young, performing with one of the best orchestras in the world. So we thought that we would prepare something for our viewers to enjoy. Let's take a look.
Oh, yeah.
When did you discover your musical talent, or that special talent you had? Particularly for piano.
When did I find that I had something special was only for me? like 3 years ago.
So late.
It's very recent. Did I know that I was good at what I was doing since I was a young age? Yes. But did I know to the extent that it can change somebody's mood for the day, or I can, better their day or lives some way, touch them one way, that it was something that was so, without even, I can't fathom having that. It's crazy. And every day I am just like, what? When I read stuff like that, or when people come up to me and say all these things. But it's not because of that I realize that I'm special, but that I have a special gift. But I think I've really had to listen to myself and just be like, okay.
I mean, for me, it's quite surprising to hear you say that it was just quite recent, because, I mean, you have been, and for very long, have been touching people's hearts and souls with your music. And, you've been doing it for so long, and you just said that it was quite recent. So for me, it's quite surprising.
Maybe I'm a very self-critical person, and maybe that's what it is. I think it's good that I didn't know this when I was younger.
And why is there a reason
Because
why?
then you just become such a big head.
Okay.
Yeah. And I like to keep a little, modesty.
Maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah.
It won't hurt you, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about this commercial, right? Commercial for Android featuring Beethoven. So how long did the filming take? Like when you were filming the commercial, could you tell us a bit about the commercial?
Yeah.
How long it took? I mean, the process. Were there any bloopers, for example? I mean, any fun stories or interesting stories?
So I got this. It all happened very quickly. Interesting story. So they Googled young concert pianist, and the whole process. I mean, it was 2 weeks before we went into the studio, and I had been engaged to perform a concert in La Jolla, which is in San Diego. So they told me the idea, and then I went to LA, and we spent about 3 days in the studio. We had about 16 cameras rolling at the same time. The director was amazing. It was my first any big commercial level kind of thing. I mean, the budget on this thing was gigantic. But it was a really interesting experience because I'd never played that piece, which is very technically demanding. We shot for 10 hours. Just playing over and over again. We had a physical therapist on standby. I was like, I'm fine, I don't need it. And then 4 hours into it, I was like, I need a massage. Yeah, but I mean, it turned out nice.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, it turned out more than nice. It was wonderful. I mean, as I said, it just blew everyone away. So, I mean, after that groundbreaking accomplishment, and then, I mean, you've even signed to IMG Artists as our youngest artist in history. And you have been engaging in various activities. So could you tell us about that? How, why you engage in so many different kinds of, diverse activities?
I think it's going back to what I said about the responsibility as I feel as a musician. It's in the same vein, in the sense that I think if you are willing to call yourself a musician, or if you have the guts to call yourself a musician, then you best go out of your way to learn every component about music and what it can do to other people. And so I just have to stick together, because who knows what's going to happen to the world, And so it's an army, and it's and whenever I find somebody else who share that kind of thought process or that belief, we're there. It doesn't matter the race, color, whatever. That's why I think it's very important for me to,
So you've given countless performances as well to date, each and every one very, very special. But if you had to pick just one, would you be able to choose one? Or which would you choose to be the most memorable?
I remember when I was, I think around 15 or something, or 16 maybe, I went to, in Queens, Astoria, in New York, there's a Steinway piano factory. And what they do is this gigantic thing has many components to it, right? So there's hundreds of people that work at the factory, and they do the same thing every single day. So like if, for instance, like you were in charge of like putting together the felt for the hammers, that's all you would do for 8 hours a day, 300 and whatever days a year, right? If you wanted that job still. And they don't realize that these little parts that they're making is a very vital component to something that is going to, you know, touch people.
Right.
They do this thing where they bring in an artist once a year, and then they put all the workers in the big lunchroom that they have, and they put a piano in there, and we get to perform for them for about an hour. And it was freezing because they don't have any. It was in the middle of winter, and there's no heat in the. I don't know why, but it was like a big, like it looked like a drill hall basically, and everybody was just standing around. And little 16. I did a tour of the factory, and then I sat down, and they all came in, and I played for them for about an hour, and my fingers were so cold when I first started. But they all listened, and they all went back to work. And
this story is actually bringing tears. I'm sure they were so touched.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was one of the most memorable.
Very. I'm sure it was very meaningful for them and for you as well, because I think you gave them, I don't know, such a big present.
I mean, it's like this is the least they deserve, you know.
Yeah.
It's like,
oh wow.
You're helping me do my thing, and you know it's all connected. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Who is this guy dancing to Bach? It's Ji. He always chooses different path with the sole goal of pushing the boundaries of classical music. Music expressed through body movements. Let's enjoy that scene for a moment.
Now, you've been praised for being a gifted, very sensitive pianist ever since you were a teenager. But I heard that there were times of struggle. You did mention that there were, you know, difficult times. And is it true that it was, I guess, a search for your true self? I mean, could you tell us a bit about those struggles as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're going through puberty, and you know, it's a very vital time, especially, you know, living in this day and age. I think when there's a lot of outside noise, and I mean, I could kind of brush it off and just say that, yeah, I did everything, and I did what everybody else had to go through, and I probably think that's what it is. I won't really go into the sappy details of my troubling years, but I think I'm very happy that I came out the other end the way I did, and I am very grateful for my parents. And,
could you also tell us about what's coming up? Plans, future plans? Yeah,
I think I will be continuing to play the piano, continuing to do music, and continuing to sort of kind of push the boundaries and challenge the status quo, but also becoming more of a man and more of a grown up. Yeah.
I'm sure that you have inspired so many of our viewers that are watching right now, you know, with your stories. And we hope, although you've mentioned that you have told yourself or told others, I'm going to quit. So many times, we hope that you don't quit and continue to do music for as long as you can. And we hope that, you know, you continue to touch people's hearts and, you know, inspire people and enrich people's lives. I'd like to thank you once again for joining us today, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.